Yeah. Just type in the top. If we're live, just type live in the top of the Facebook Live thing. Looks like we're recording, so I'll go ahead and get started. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another Holo and Holochain live Q&A. We were having a little bit of technical difficulty, so this might not be getting broadcast on Facebook Live. It might be just on YouTube. We'll see. I am Matthew Schutte. I'm here with Gene Russell. Hi, Gene. And David Atkinson. Hey, David.
Hey, Matthew.
This is, I think, our 10th Q&A. So we're getting up there. This was kind of just a random whim one afternoon. Like, we should do a Q&A, and then it became a regular thing. So yay, I think they've been pretty useful. And this is our ICO talk number 2. All right, let's go. Let's dive in. So we'll start with some announcements as people join in. If you haven't already joined our online community, there are brilliant conversations happening there, and all of your questions can be answered. That is available at chat.holochain.net. That's chat.holochain.net. And if you're interested in attending a meetup or hosting a meetup, you can find out all about those on our website, holo.host and holochain.org. We have meetups in Atlanta. We have a meetup that's been happening in the San Francisco Bay Area. We did one this last week at Mozilla's San Francisco office, which I didn't get to go to because I'm in Europe at the moment, but I heard was wonderful. We had dozens of folks there, and many of them were builders. Yay, looking to build things. I think we've got a meetup happening in Copenhagen in late February, the 23rd or 22nd, and then we also have a hackathon happening in Copenhagen, the 23rd to the 25th. We have a hackathon at the end of March. Actually, no, you know what? I believe the Copenhagen hackathon's been moved back. We might have a meetup in late February and then a hackathon in late March. And that's actually being independently organized. We're just supporting. In Brazil, in Sao Paulo, we have, sorry, somebody was typing things and the text is jumping around on me. So we have a hackathon happening at the end of March. And there's a pretty vibrant holochain community starting to emerge in Brazil. You can connect with those folks on our chat. Also, if you are interested in starting a meetup wherever you are, you can go to the Holochain Outreach channel on our online chat and share where you're located, what you're excited about, whether that's social transformation, conversation, actually writing code, and just let people know that you're interested in helping organize gatherings in your local area, and we'll try to support that. We will reach out, provide some guidance, some materials, etc., maybe even help promote. One other thing to note, we're doing a developer combo giveaway. There's a couple of things happening there. One of them is we're doing a survey of developers. And if I can get a link to that, it's https://holo.host/dev-survey. Go there, fill out the survey, share that. We're actually doing some giveaways related to the sharing of that, because we're trying to really get a better sensing of what our community is interested in and looking for. All right, we've got some, before we dive into questions and things, David, Gene, do you have any comments to kick us off with? Is there anything you're excited about or anything you feel like people should know about before we jump into other people's questions?
I've been in and out of the London hackathon this week, and I think they're pretty excited. They're building some cool stuff, and for a lot of people, it's a great experience hearing about something like Holochain. They've heard about various blockchains, and then they come in and clutter's up and running in 5 minutes, and they're often developing within the day. So there's been a fair bit of buzz and energy there, which has been awesome. And my announcement, I think, is that we were hoping to have news about the ICO today. We're still working with the regulator. It's taken a little bit longer than we expected. Just really nothing more than I described last week, which is that it's an informal process, and they're very, very busy at the moment, like all of the crypto world. So it'll be coming up in the next week or two. We'll have some news for you guys, and we'll have a firm date. But until then, just hold the course like we are, and we're looking forward to being able to share the news as soon as we can.
And one thing that we're planning to do is once we do have a date, we're not going to spring it on you. We'll go, hey, we have a date, and we'll give you 48 hours notice to kind of get prepared and put Ether into an account and do all that stuff so that you can participate in the ERC20 token sale. That said, you don't have to wait to get whitelisted. You can go to our website right now, holo.host/ICO, and start the whitelisting process if you have not already done so. It takes usually less than a day, but there are snags. If you need help, and you can go to our chat community and ask for, I think, is it Julia Verif? we've got support from our folks that are the company that's doing the whitelisting available if anything happens on your end.
It hasn't quite passed my mum test yet. She's still stuck on the Ethereum wallet. But fingers crossed, it'll be a big weekend to see if she can get an Ethereum wallet.
Gene, you're heading up the ICO. Do you have any other comments or thoughts before we dive in?
Yeah, I mean, we're very present to what's not done, but we should also be celebrating what is done. We've finished incorporation. And so this was on our plate that we needed to make sure all the I's were dotted and T's were crossed. That's been completed. So now it really is just the regulator and not some other pieces. And so I'm excited about that. And then we've had some issue with the Verif being difficult if you don't have a camera on your computer. And so I'm waiting for news in the next day or so that we've installed a mobile application so that you can do the verification through your phone. And then we've got a whole bunch of people who have been stuck in the whitelisting process because of that lack of ability to have a camera. And so we're excited about getting them the rest of the way through.
Awesome. Yeah. The one thing that I will say on the regulator issue, just to make visible, what do we mean when we say regulator? What is the regulatory stuff that we're waiting on? Either of you want to sort of make that visible?
Yeah, sure. It's looking at, so a regulator is someone within the government whose responsibility is to make sure that the project, business, or whatever it is operating or will operate in accordance with the local laws. So what the regulator is doing in Liechtenstein, and which is while frustrating that it's slow for this particular project, again, and a very encouraging process, and one that we're happy is taking place, is they're looking at our green paper, where the fundamentals of how our ecosystem will operate are described, and they're checking that within that green paper, everything that we say we are going to be doing is in accordance with EU laws. And so the regulator's role is to make sure, as part of the Liechtenstein government, make sure that they're comfortable that this particular organization will be operating out of Liechtenstein in accordance with local laws.
Yeah, and so, go ahead, Jean.
I would add to that, like, the regulator is about minimum viable. This is like, please don't do the wrong bad things. What's the minimum that you need to achieve? And we've so striven to be at the top of like, what is the best way to do this? And so we didn't design our project or our white paper to just cross over the minimum thresholds necessary. We've designed things in a way that we hope to raise the bar on what ICOs look like and do. And so I don't know how much that might be contributing to them going, let's look at this a little closer, interesting, or not, but that's my relationship to it.
Yeah, and the one thing that we had made visible last week, and I'll just make visible again, is They're looking to pre-approve our ICO, right? That's the way they're trying to do this, is to pre-approve the structure of our business, the structure, rather than us just doing something then hoping later on that we didn't accidentally cross an invisible line. So it's a way that they are structuring their approvals process.
Yeah, and one of the reasons we shifted to Liechtenstein is we're really happy that that's an important process for us, rather than, as you say, launching something and then seeing what happens later. The other aspect of the whitelist, I'm not sure if we covered it last week, guys, is that I think we've crossed over people from 100 different countries. Is that right?
Yes, I believe so.
Which is pretty exciting. And the other thing for all of you listening is that if you want to get involved or you want to understand more about the ICO, the whitelisting process, or just that we don't have various people who want to see if they can get more deeply involved in Holochain, or invest more in Holo and Holochain, is there's always go through the Mattermost channel and have a chat to us. It's definitely a good time, as we're in a little bit of a holding pattern, to ask questions and see how you can get more deeply involved.
Yeah, in any way, whether it's investing, developing, etc. We've got a little bit of time right now to think through some of the next step stuff. And for those of you who are interested in getting involved in various ways, or just are curious about the project, asking questions in Mattermost is the best way to get answers, and they don't always come from us, right? Those answers come from members of our community who've been involved, and often what happens is they will provide a bunch of detail, and then they'll go, but here's a little area where I actually don't have clarity, and they'll ask a question, and it will force us to actually go, oh shoot, we don't have clarity there either. And so it helps us gain a deeper understanding of all the little nooks and crannies of what is an emerging ecosystem. And so we really encourage conversations and questions to be happening there.
Oh yeah, by the way, we just crossed the $500,000 mark in the Indiegogo campaign, which only has a couple days to go. Like, my attention is on the ICO, but meanwhile over there, the Indiegogo campaign, which we started out with a goal of 200,000, now crested 500,000.
Yeah. So yeah. Yay. And what that means, I mean, aside from that demonstrating that there was a lot of demand, financially, that doesn't put us in great shape, just to be totally honest. It doesn't put us in bad shape, but we're not making a ton of dough on our hardware, right? This was really about getting a solid foundation of devices out into the world. And fortunately, we're gonna have a lot of devices out in the world. It's somewhere in the range of about 1,000 different machines that are going to be live and on the network and supporting this ecosystem from day one. So that's solid. Our worry, our whole reason for doing the Indiegogo in the first place was we wanted to make sure that when we launched this thing, it worked. That somebody didn't type in some website to go visit a peer-to-peer application and find that there was nobody there on the other end, and it doesn't look like that's going to be the case. So, all right, we've been told that we are live on Facebook now too, so that's great. Okay, welcome Facebook folks. James asked, was there a significant difference between Gibraltar and Liechtenstein jurisdictions?
I think that's mine, isn't it?
I think it is.
Wonderful. James, great question. We chatted about this a little bit on the Q&A number 9. Every jurisdiction that we investigated over the last sort of 10 months, and we looked at 100 with a very broad brush and say 10 with a narrower brush, have their various strengths and weaknesses depending on which kind of project you are and depending what you're looking to build and you're looking to achieve. For us, the biggest difference with Liechtenstein was that, one, it had a a banking environment that allows us for operational banking and also to be able to interact with our sort of financial ecosystem that we'll be building over the next 2, 3, 4 years. And if you read the green paper and start to look into things like reserve accounts and infrastructure provider, etc., that will give you a sense of the type of banking environment that we want to be participating in longer term. So that was definitely a big reason for us. The other major reason was that we had a hackathon in Liechtenstein and we'd started building some deep community roots there. And what you'll know of the project is bringing about large-scale social change is one of the most important things for us. So Liechtenstein, with the Hus Institute as a strong partner, also was a natural fit. There are lots of other areas where there's much of a muchness. There's lots of areas where Gibraltar's fantastic. We have some great partners in Gibraltar, and we're suddenly looking to continue working with Gibraltar, but we knew that Liechtenstein was the right place to incorporate and run our ICO out of.
Great. I'm going to take this question on why couldn't the US participate in the ICO? And it's not that legally you couldn't, it's that the US regulation is changing in ways that we can't anticipate. So we couldn't design for that audience and be sure that we would be in compliance. And so we wanted to play it safe and exclude the US in the ICO.
And again, we've mentioned this in previous talks, but I'll mention it again. Just because people aren't able to participate in the ICO in the US, China, or South Korea doesn't mean they're not going to be able to participate in the ecosystem. They're going to be able to earn holo fuel. They're going to be able to spend holo fuel. They're going to be able to do all that stuff. They just can't participate in this pre-sale of holo fuel. Related to the previous question on launching an ICO and the jurisdictions and stuff, David had written a really good article on that. It's on our Medium page. It's medium.com/h-o-l-o, and you'll be able to look it up. It's called Launching an ICO That is Ready to Bridge the Old and New Worlds from the Outset. Another question. To what extent does Holo plan to do data storage? And what makes Holo better than a company such as Filecoin that solely focuses on that? Initially, data storage is not our primary focus. We expect that for a lot of applications, particularly things where people are planning to be participating as peers on lightweight devices like mobile phones, they're going to want to make use of links to external file storage. So instead of storing 5 GB video files on your phone, they're going to want to be having links shared to 5 GB video files that are stored elsewhere in places such as Filecoin or IPFS. Now that said, I did see some chat this week with folks on Mattermost asking, could we build file storage systems on Holochain? And the answer there is yes. Absolutely. And Eric actually said, I would encourage, Eric, one of our founders and core developers, I would encourage you to go and check it out. Now, the thing to note there is if you are participating as a peer in that system, you're planning on holding the size of the files that are being stored, right? So that could be a dumb way of doing that, or a simple way of doing that. One big file, hey, it's a 5 GB video file, and boom, it's all landing on my device, hopefully not my cell phone. But another way of doing that might be to break it into smaller pieces, to shard it into little chunks and have those spread out across a bunch of different folks. And when you go to watch that file or listen to that file or whatever, you're pulling it back from all those different people. So can we build things on top of Holochain that are file storage specific? Yes, we can. We haven't focused on that yet. At this point, we're anticipating making use of, or many people making use of existing file storage mechanisms for larger files. That said, there is a bit of data storage that is part of the architecture. It's just how much do you want big chunky files landing on people's small devices? Do one of you want to take a next question?
Sure, I will take the How or where do people purchase holoports after the end of the Indiegogo campaign? Well, the great news is, while the campaign's over, we're just switching to in-demand purchasing. So same place. It will just be in demand as you go without having a, this is when it ends and this is what our goal is. So they will be continuing to be available.
On Indiegogo, yeah. And one thing to note there is that those in-demand sales on Indiegogo will also be tied to our initial community offering. So we had architected our initial community offering so that we were only raising as much currency as we thought we needed to support the size of our ecosystem. We're continuing to use the demand as demonstrated via Indiegogo sales to give us one of our main indicators of how big our ecosystem will be. Other things like participation in hackathons and developer trainings and things like that are being counted as well. But the Indiegogo stuff is not going away just because the official campaign is ending.
That's right. Can I add a little piece to that, which is, so the initial piece of the ICO is 2.5, which is the minimum we said we needed in order to launch this ecosystem. And then the supply is determined thereafter by the Indiegogo campaign and in demand. And so right now, having exceeded our goal, that was going to release, I think, about 10 million in the ICO. And so there's room still between the 10 and our cap at 25 for more purchasing. So we're hoping that people will come and get engaged, especially in the developer training. We're interested in seeing a lot more developers come on board and be participating and creating applications for this ecosystem.
Yeah, the one place where we could probably do a better job still is in making really visible what our developer training is going to look like. And I'll be clear, I think we're going to be ridiculously generous in our developer training. I think we're going to have multi-day online workshops where if you didn't get what you wanted before, you just come back and participate again, and they're going to be available several times. Something along those lines, so that we get people well trained and we get them well connected to one another. Because for us, developer trainings aren't a profit center. They are a natural thing that's needed for us to nourish a vibrant ecosystem of applications. We need lots of really sharp, very well trained, well connected developers. And we want to be connecting them with capital. We want to be connecting them with colleagues. We want to be connecting them with other forms of support. So that's the key here, is that we're trying to build an ecosystem. Andrea Stamenkovic, I think I pronounced that right, hopefully. Fingers crossed. Sorry if I butchered it. Maybe this has been answered, but when is the sale? Sorry, but we don't know. We wish we could tell you. We're hoping it's in the next couple of weeks. We're waiting on a regulator to approve the ICO. And as soon as that's approved, then we will say yes, and we'll put a date down, and you'll have 48 hours notice to get prepared before we launch the campaign. None asked, is there a particular marketplace where people in the US could buy HoloFuel immediately after the ICO? Anybody got an answer on that one?
David?
Yeah, sure. So none. Great question. So HoloFuel, I'm assuming you mean the Holo tokens. The HoloFuel will be the currency that's available when Holo is launched, which will be a few months after the ICO. So, and that will be wonderful, because what you'll be able to load Holo and then be able to participate by, well, we're not sure exactly the mechanisms yet, but potentially things like putting in your credit card details and being able to exchange, well, fiat currency for, or buy HoloFuel through fiat currency. One of the mechanisms we can do that is because we've created an asset-backed currency. The asset in this case being the compute power, so that we don't have to run the series of exchange mechanisms and pricing mechanisms that you would run for other currencies. So Holo Fuel will be available when Holo is ready, but the ERC20 tokens that will be available after the ICO is finished, which will then be redeemable for Holo Fuel when Holo comes online. As you say, they're not available for US citizens to purchase through the ICO. They will be available after the ICO, I guess. Firstly, they won't be tradable during the ICO. After the ICO, I think there are places like Ether Delta where people are exchanging all sorts of ERC20 tokens where there's no actual marketplace to do so. So I assume, like other people, will be getting access to other tokens that some people might be putting their Holo tokens on Ether Delta. We're not actively seeking relationships with exchanges at the moment, but what we expect is, as the story of what we're building comes out, there'll be lots of places that would like to be partnering with us to make the transition from what we're building today into Holo as easy as possible. So quite a long way of saying we're not sure, and it's not something we're actively seeking at the moment, but we imagine as the word builds that will be possible. And have you guys got anything to add to that?
No, that sounds great for now. Someone said, can you please update this ICO info on your website? That sounds like a good suggestion. Thank you. Adi Gergish, who I actually met in Barcelona a couple nights ago. Hey, Adi, said, can we pay for holoports in any crypto? Unfortunately, no. Indiegogo doesn't accept crypto. Indiegogo is who we're selling our holoports through. So unfortunately, no. You're not able to buy a holoport with Ethereum today. Harry asked if we could be more specific about be prepared. I'm guessing he's referring to the ICO. Jean, do you want to take that?
Yeah, I had a sense of like, oh, I don't know when the ICO is coming, and a lot of ICOs go very fast. And so I didn't want people to feel like, oh, when is that going to happen? Oh, I didn't, I'm traveling that day, or whatever was coming up. And so we wanted people to know, here's when it's going to happen. Take a deep breath, put it on your schedule. Here's when the launch is. So that's why the be prepared. I mean, the thing to prepare is to be whitelisted and then be ready for our message. And we will give you adequate time. I think there's some concern that we're going to like launch in the middle of the night or something, and people won't know and won't be prepared then to hit the button. Sorry, David, you're distracting.
We've got two kids. They can't believe I'm talking to two people at the same time. It's blowing their minds. So,
Hi.
You wave hello. Lennon, you want to wave as well? Hello, everyone.
Hello.
There's a lot of people you're talking to that you can't see. All right, you guys go and play Lego.
Bye. All right, what else? Chad Green said, any upcoming applications like Facebook so I can abandon it? Facebook is a pretty complicated application. We do expect people to build alternatives to Facebook. That said, we're already building and have a simple working version of an alternative to Twitter. So that's not too different from Facebook. The follow functionality is there. The messaging functionality is there. But the videos and I don't know, Facebook has like 4,000 different features at this point. So it'll be interesting to see how quickly an open source alternative might actually run down Facebook. But those are not things that we are currently planning to build, though they're probably things that you are not going to be alone in wanting to be real in the world.
Matthew, I love this question. Like I've gotten it several times. Where's the Facebook version gonna be? And it's more than just, to me, it's more than just like what's the next Facebook. Like, you don't actually want that. And part of what's so frustrating about Facebook is the inability to leave. And so, Matthew, can you say something about what social network would mean on Holochain in terms of, are you going to get locked in again?
Yeah. So thank you for that, Jean. It's funny. We are like as is always the case, we're locked inside of our own experience, right? And so we've seen a world where you join a service and then that service kind of shapes your reality. And it's sort of one size fits all, right? The world of applications today is Facebook defines the app or Uber defines the app, and then you use it in that particular shape. And that's a little different from how the world of holochain applications are going to work, because we expect people to be bridging between applications and extending them and modifying them. And so we'll be able to use something like Facebook with Jean and David and I, but two things. One, each of us will be able to go, I don't like how this is working, and change it and start playing by some different rules with anybody else who wants to play by those rules. Or, and this might be the more important point, extend it, right? I'm able to make use of additional stuff, maybe with some subset of that community, or with outsiders altogether, to shape how I interact in the world. I love that we've got kids and kittens. This is so, I just want to point out that David's children were much better behaved than your kitten. Your kitten is like, hello, I'm here. Look at me.
You're like, I'm not buying this extending applications.
That's right. That's right. I feel like points here. Yeah, the simple example that I often give with the extending applications thing is it's not much of an extension, but if you're using an Uber-like app and you have 5 stars, and some of the people in that application want to pay attention to, does the driver play awful music really loud, or does the driver talk a whole bunch? They don't have to get the whole rest of the community to agree to updating the main protocol. They could just keep track of that separately. They could set up their own little micro application that's just about, do they listen to loud music when they're driving, or are they really chatty? And those could be 2 separate things. And when you look up when you book a ride, you get the driver's ID back, and it immediately fires off and pulls down the other information that you're interested in. And what you end up thinking about there is you actually end up crossing the perspectives of these different applications, of the different signals that they are paying attention to. The main app was just 5 stars, but this thing is paying attention to some other stuff and enables you to go, maybe I don't want that ride after all, right? And you don't have to sort of win the bureaucracy game within that one application in order to be able to start paying attention to signals in that different way. So there's a lot of additional flexibility there. Other things here.
Yep, Matthew, I was wondering.
Yeah.
I just reckon that because last time we saw you on this, you're at Davos, like,
yeah,
I think behind a cigarette vending machine or next
True.
to a cigarette vending machine. And I was wondering, like, there must have been so many interesting conversations that you had at Davos. I wondered whether people might be interested, especially in like what kind of things were people talking to you about that they wanted to build, and any sort of any also insights you can share around like ways that you could describe that Holochain or Holo could help with that were not what anyone had ever heard before.
Yeah, I think, well, there was a lot of the conversation in Davos in general was around blockchain. It was blockchain and cryptocurrencies and what is going to happen in terms of national cryptocurrencies. And then there were tons of people who were trying to figure out, what do we bet on, right? What should we be gambling on? What should we be investing in? And the fact that we weren't there talking about gambling, that alone stood out from the pack. The fact that we had things that were working in the world kind of stood out. But I heard from a number of different organizations, specifically ones that are we had lots of people that I talked to, I won't name any names, we had lots of people who gave talks or made pitches about what they were building on top of blockchain. And then I talked about privately and they were going, we can't build this on top of blockchain, it's not working. and, and I went, well, what are you trying to build? And we started talking, yeah, you might be able to do that on blockchain because it actually works. And these are people who are not dumb people and they're not lacking in resources. They've got significant sums of money. They have big teams. They're excited about a distributed computing architecture that can help them to solve real problems in the world. It just turns out that blockchain is kind of the dumbest way to do distributed computing, right? It's let's have everybody hold on to a copy of everything. And let's spend a ton of time and effort figuring out which 99% of the information we're going to throw away. Right? Because in blockchain, you're picking one person's perspective every 10 minutes or so. In the case of Bitcoin, for instance, one person's perspective to be the truth for the entire network, and that's just sort of crazy, if you ask me. That's a ton of effort required to lose most of the information in your system. Holochain, on the other hand, allows you to hold on to all of that, keep it available, and pull the pieces that are relevant to you in your particular interaction, and be able to do that quickly. So you're not having to spend a bunch of time, effort, energy, money picking which of the perspectives we're going to hold on to, so that we throw away everything else. That's sort of silly. More specifically, some projects that I was really excited to hear about had to do with electrification and internet access and banking, basically financial transactions in Africa and India. So there were a couple of projects that were working on those areas, one of which was trying to do all three. They were like, we are trying to enable communities who don't have electricity, don't have banking, don't have internet connections, and we want those communities to sort of leapfrog, boom, into all of them available now. And that organization in particular has 800 people on the ground doing installations. They've got a smaller but still significant team doing all the building and back end stuff and the HQ kind of operations. And the CEO had said specifically to his team, don't build on blockchain. We've looked at it, it's not gonna work. Find me something else that can solve this problem for us. And so when we started having conversations, they got really excited. They immediately deployed a team to go take a look at Holochain. And I'm looking forward to doing lots of interesting stuff with them in the future, because I feel like those are exactly the kinds of things that we want to bring into the world. Yeah, I can leave it at that for right now.
Yeah, awesome. I want to do a summary synthesis of some of what I've heard from you, in part because I think this is a piece of the conversation that David and I have been having about what does this all mean. It's like we got started on this stuff, blockchain, because we wanted to be able to do something. We wanted to be able to have these transactions without having to go through a bank. And that's brilliant and important and lovely. But we also got excited about this idea of having decentralized applications, and blockchain wasn't designed for all of that, right? And so it's like we got to move up a level in our system design in order to design for those applications that deliver on the vision that blockchain started us on. And so I'm so excited to hear that some of those things are being designed not for Silicon Valley, what's the next little app I need to manage my dry cleaning, but actually for the, to transform the lived experience of people. So I'm really excited about your example, Matthew.
Yeah, the way that somebody repeated it back to me, which totally aligns with how we describe this often, was, oh, you guys are trying to move beyond value transfer to values transfers, and really interactions that enable people to communicate and coordinate about the things that they value in sort of richer ways. And that's pretty exciting. Loloi, okay. says, I am enthusiastic about Holo and I bought a Holo port. What is the interest to participate to the ICO till I don't know how I will spend my Holo fuel? I don't know exactly what I'm not exactly quite sure what Laloy was trying to get at there, but what's the interest to participate in the ICO? We've had a lot of interest so far. We have people reaching out to us. We have over 1,000 people who have succeeded to get through the whitelisting process, which has not been the easiest, as we touched on earlier. It hasn't passed David's mom test. I think we've had more than double that who've tried to participate in the whitelisting. But the ICO is really about a pre-purchase of Holo fuel, and the Holo fuel is what hosts are being compensated with in the Holo ecosystem. So you've bought a Holo port. When you plug that in and you set it up, you connect it to the internet, that Holo port is going to be serving applications for Holochain apps. It's going to enable those Holochain apps to essentially bridge to the centralized web. It's going to enable someone like David's mom to open a web browser, type in a URL, and interact with this peer-to-peer application without having to download and install and wrap their head around peer-to-peer applications, right? So it's sort of the on-ramp into the new distributed web. It makes it easy for those apps to play with regular folks and for regular folks to interact with those apps. That's the currency system. The Holo fuel is the currency that's going to be getting used in that system. And this is the pre-sale of that currency. People are actually technically purchasing Holo tokens, which are ERC20 tokens on Ethereum. And those will be redeemable at the launch of our network for our credits in our Holo fuel system. If you have more questions on that, you can look at the green paper available at holo.host/green paper or the currency paper at holo.host/currency. That's kind of geeky stuff. Yeah, Jean.
I also hear in there like Lola has bought a Holo port, and so they are going to earn Holo fuel and want to know like what are they going to spend it on? And I think there's two answers there. One is there can be an economy of you paying somebody else in the Holo ecosystem for buying a bicycle from them. Like that doesn't have to, it doesn't only have to be serving that purpose. So you could use it within the ecosystem to pay for other things. That's one. And two, there's a way to cash it out. So you can, if that has been used for hosting, then it can be a host are able to cash it out.
Yeah, if you've earned it through hosting, then you can cash it out. Exactly. The one other thing that I'll mention there is at the launch of our ecosystem, we are anticipating possibly, I'm not certain on this, but possibly constraining how large a transaction you can do early on while we get everything sort of ironed out. If there is a failure, we'd prefer that failure to be 75 cents, not $75,000. So initially, we're going to do some. There's going to be a test period where the size of transactions is constrained. Again, what are we trying to do? We're trying to foster a hosting ecosystem. We're trying to foster a whole bunch of this type of activity happening. But as Jean mentioned, we will see a larger ecosystem emerge on top of that foundation.
Yeah, and it is typical in a mutual credit system to have credit limits, right? So, you will be able to expand your credit over time based on past activity.
Yeah, though we are inventing a new digital system, we didn't invent mutual credit. It's been around for hundreds of years and has been used quite well. David, do you want to pick off one of these next questions? Is there anything here that's jumping out at you?
Yeah, I think, well, Harry, again, has asked, being prepared for the ICO, what does that mean? And really simply, the first thing is get through the whitelist now. And I think we've all said that, but we can't say that strongly enough. Make sure you're whitelisted so that when we announce the timing of the ICO, then at least you've gone 99% through the process. Then the next step, as you say, is have your Ethereum in a personal wallet. Don't have it on an exchange, but make sure it's moved onto a personal wallet. So something like through my Ether wallet, always do it through bookmarks and or through Google rather than using it in your browser and potentially getting the wrong website. So have it in a wallet, and then as soon as you're ready and the ICO, as soon as the ICO is launched, yes, as you say, then on the first day that it's launched, try and move your Ether to be able to participate in the ICO and buy your Holo tokens. I think that sort of bridges into a question which I'll start answering, and then one of you guys can pick up, which is then, can you explain the supply interest increases every day statement? So as Jean and Matthew have been describing, that we believe that at a minimum, we needed 2.5 million euro to be able to fund the development of Holo and Holochain to the level required to ship Holo. So that is the 2.5 million. Now, what we wanted to do is say, well, if the ecosystem looks like it's more vibrant than what was required at that base level, in other words, if there are going to be hosts coming online, if there are people developing applications, if there's lots and lots of momentum in the ecosystem, then we'll increase the supply in the ICO, because that means we can fund additional projects in the ecosystem. That means we can scale and grow faster. So it wouldn't be responsible to take more money in the ICO if there was no movement in the ecosystem. But as the demand in the ecosystem increases, well, then that's a good time to be able to increase the amount of money we raise to be able to move at the rate of demand. So I'm not going to go into the details in the supply formula, because I've got two people who are desperately keen to answer any of those describe that now. But effectively what we get is, on day 3, the crowdfund demand comes through, so that releases around 10 million euros into the ICO supply, and then from day 3 onwards, any additional purchasing through the Indiegogo on demand, it's chaos here. In any additional purchase through the Indiegogo crowdfund campaign will release new supply into the ICO, and it depends on what is purchased and how much of those particular perks are purchased into how much the ICO grows.
I want to add to that. I mean, all spot on. I want to add to that this important aspect of reserves. And so what's going to happen is, if you've made a purchase in the Indiegogo campaign and you're not in a restricted zone, then things are reserved for you. The proportion that's released into the ecosystem that relates to what you purchased is reserved for you for 24 hours. So you've got that first person, lead on everybody else in getting the tokens that relate to what you've released in the marketplace based on your purchase in Indiegogo. And so I would be wary of anticipating that day 5, if the ICO is sold out, you could get more from Indiegogo, but possibly only if you're the one making the purchase in Indiegogo, because anybody doing so is reserving those. And that might be part of what's happening, is their purchase reserved it. They get the first 24 hours to purchase. And then it's released to the rest of the community to be available.
And then, Jean, we'll just tie up maybe Harry's answer, because Harry's asking a couple of follow-on questions we can just quickly answer. So, Harry, how much, you can say that we've got a minimum, I think, Jean, have we released the minimum?
Yes, 0.1 ETH.
Yep. So, Harry, in terms of what to then do to get ready, make sure you have a minimum of 0.1 ETH available in your wallet to be able to transfer, and the maximum is 10% of the day's supply coming from one particular wallet. So you want to be able to get there on when the day opens, which the timings of that will be available on the ICO website. And yeah, as I said, so I think if day 1 the supply is 2.5 million, then the euro equivalent of 250,000 ETH is what you could be transferring, and anywhere in between on that day. And any further questions to that, definitely jump on the public Mattermost channel and ask away, and there'll be people willing to and able to help you through the specifics.
Yeah,
the address for that. Yeah, go, Jane.
I want to add on that, because this is one of those spaces where people asking questions has helped. is the 10% supply. Does that apply to reserves? And the answer is no. And so, on day 10, you go in and you make an Indiegogo purchase. Do you only get 10% of the supply for that day because that's the only thing that was bought that day, for example? Let's just imagine that case. No, you got those reserve tokens based on your purchase. Those are yours. It's not 10% of that particular day. Does that make sense to everybody? Your reserves are your reserves.
Great. Okay. Harry also said, so a 24-hour time window after the ICO, 24 hours is a short window. You can still purchase other stuff, if it's available. But yeah, go ahead, David.
I was going to say 24 hours is like a year in the crypto world, though.
Yeah. There were other projects that sold out of all of their currency in 30 seconds. So there's a lot of people that have expressed that they would like to participate. We want to make sure that they are able to. We do want to give our Indiegogo backers a chance to participate as well, and hence the reserve structure. But this is the balance that we've struck between making sure that they have something available without making it so that they're the only ones who have something available to them. We have another question. Was this, I think that was already answered. Yes, that one has been answered. So if I just buy HoloFuel, I can't get it out unless I earn what I bought back through hosting. Couple things there. One, we actually have a mechanism for redeeming things directly. No other cryptocurrency, or very few others, at least that I know of, have that, right? Like you can't go to some Bitcoin foundation and say, okay, now give me dollars, right? However, lots of other folks are willing to give you dollars for Bitcoins. That will be the case here too. What we're describing is what's required for you to have us give you Ether or dollars or something else. Now, initially, it's going to be cryptocurrencies that we're going to be redeeming things out in over the next year or so. We're hoping to support other currencies as well. But the redemptions are going to be for people who've earned Holo through hosting. That does not mean that you will have no way of extracting value from your possession of HoloFuel. It just means that we will be redeeming HoloFuel if you've hosted. And only if you want, right? Like the truth is, you may find it to be much more profitable to be handing that to somebody else and having it continue to circulate in the system. But if you want to cash out with us, great. You can do that if you've earned it through hosting. Any comments or like, Matt, you got that all wrongs from David or Jane?
No, it's a really nice, really nice way of explaining, because I think like a lot of what we're describing, there's sort of parallel worlds, and I think like you really nicely articulated the fact that we're often talking about our ecosystem. What we're often not talking about is the ecosystem that will be building up around Holo and around Holochain that will be helping people solve the kind of problems that you're asking on this chat. And again, that's another great reason to get into the community and start asking these questions again and start pushing, because then someone's going to come up with a bright idea on how to bridge between Holochain and something else, and let's do this in a different way, because in the end, everyone around the world is going to want to participate in the ecosystem that we're building.
That's our modest thought on it.
We're not so modest.
Exactly.
Can we tackle this from NunSwaks?
Yeah.
Could one of you try to organize an effort to ask if people who get hot tokens in the ICO would be willing to offer some portion of their tokens at cost soon after? So that people from restricted countries could put their name on a list to be able to buy after the ICO at ICO pricing. And my sense is no, we couldn't. Somebody could, but we couldn't.
Yeah, we would be stepping on regulatory landmines, I think, if we started to orchestrate that kind of routing around of the very thing that we've made sure we're not doing. So unfortunately, that's not going to work for us. But if other folks are able to help you out there, great. And yeah, I hear you. I was realizing this the other day. I was like, wait, I don't get to participate in the ICO because I'm an American. I was totally ready to like pull some retirement money out that isn't really doing much for me. Just just a bit, put in there.
Yeah, and I would say if you're planning to be somebody who organizes that, I'm not sure you should do so on our chat channel. You might want to find some other place to do it. But I don't see why somebody couldn't do it.
Well, as I said, I think like to another, you know, there's places like Ether Dollar. There are plenty of places. This is another question to me, which is beyond what we're describing, which is the mechanism by which we're bringing Holo tokens and then long-term Holo fuel into the ecosystem we're building. There are plenty of other websites, services, chat channels, etc., which are designed to, I guess, help people that are in your same position in all sorts of different cryptocurrencies. I encourage, if this is what you'd like to do, to find some of those communities and work with them. And it's not necessarily that you're going to get like ICO pricing, but what to me you're really saying is, how can I participate in Holo through Holo tokens as early as possible? And I'm sure they'll be pretty innovative and work out how you can do that.
Yeah. We're seeing some notes here saying we're over time. We did start a little bit late, so if you two are okay with it, I think we can go another few minutes and try to answer some last questions. One of them was, James asked, so each Holo port will come with some kind of wallet installed such that I can directly transfer Holo fuel peer-to-peer? Kind of, yeah. It's not that it comes installed necessarily, but you're going to set up your account and you're going to have an account balance. And initially that account balance might be 0. But we go into some detail on some of these architectures in the green paper and in the currency paper. Now, whether or not it would be installed prior to it being shipped to you, I don't think so. I think you're going to receive the device, you're going to set it up, and you're going to create an account. If you already have some Holo fuel that you've purchased in an ICO, you can fund it. You can fund that into your account, I'm sure. But it will operate like a wallet does in Ethereum or a wallet does in Bitcoin. It'll just be your account in Holo. And because our currency is a little bit different, it doesn't hold tokens, it holds onto your account balance. And you're able to sign transactions and participate in receiving and sending Holo fuel. I don't know how to pronounce this name, Ishakips, I guess. I could see you mentioning about stable value coin here. Does that mean Holo token is pegged, or will it be under some mechanism to prevent volatility? Question is a great one to answer given what is happening today. And they pointed out the volatility in some of these other cryptocurrencies.
I think David is the one who added that chart to our...
I did indeed. There's a whole bunch of channels. I think if we look at the last 24 hours, the Ether price has moved from... Actually, if I try and get that back up there, the Ether price has moved sort of from $1,100 down to below $800 and then hovering around $900. And yeah, I mean, difficult to run a transaction ecosystem when you're getting that level of volatility in your currency pricing.
Yeah, great for speculating, not so great for using. What were you going to say, Jane?
Yeah, so can we answer that question? So yes, it's initially pegged against Ethereum in the sense of we did this benchmarking, and we've got a blog post on Medium explaining how we are determining that. Our bet, initial bet is at minimum, we are 10,000 times faster. Is faster the right word? I got in trouble once for saying the wrong adjective there. Like I said, cheaper or something. I think it's faster. But read the blog post because that's where all the nitty-gritty details are for that. And then thereafter, holo fuel is not pegged against any outside thing. And the value stability has to do with it being this mutual credit currency. And so whatever's in is out. There's no, it can go through the roof problem, right?
Yeah, we have a few mechanisms there, right? One, it's value, it's asset backed. So it's actually backed by computing capacity, and it's redeemable for a specific amount of computing capacity. So if it goes crazy off the charts in some way, it becomes very divorced from the underlying asset that it's redeemable by. But the other thing is, this is kind of confusing because we have our reserves that we're making available to our Indiegogo campaign folks, but we also have something we're calling reserve accounts that will be a part of the ecosystem moving forward, not in this early holo token sale, but later on once holo fuel is live. The holo token stuff is not, we're not going to have the stability inducing mechanisms for holo tokens. Those stability inducing mechanisms are part of the holo fuel and holo hosting ecosystem. And the main one there is our supply is not fixed. Various actors, from the organization to participants in the community that have established a solid reputation as hosts, are going to be able to issue and redeem holo fuel, which means our currency supply can breathe. It can expand, more currency is available. It can contract, less currency is available. And when we have fluctuations in pricing, others will issue or redeem currency, and that will counterbalance the fluctuations in demand. So when you have an ability for shifts in demand to be met by shifts in supply, it has a stabilizing effect on the currency. It doesn't mean the currency will be static. It doesn't mean it can't go up in price or can't go down in price. It just means it's not going to bounce around crazy hard, rapidly, day in, day out. And for us, that's really important because the stability of value makes it easier for people to make predictions and thus make business decisions about, I'm going to spend this, I'm going to hold on to this, etc. And that makes it a much better medium of exchange currency. Since our goal with this currency is to have it be exchanged, to have it actually foster a whole bunch of activity, we designed it to be a solid medium of exchange currency. And most of the other cryptocurrencies out there just aren't. I was at a place in Berlin a few days ago called Room 77, which I believe was the first place in Europe to accept Bitcoin. One of the people that I was with, Theo from the Economic Space Agency project, wanted to pay in Bitcoin Cash because trying to pay in Bitcoin would make our meal cost twice as much as the actual food cost, because the fee for processing that transaction would have been, $30 or $40, whereas the meal was $20. So he said, hey, can we do Bitcoin Cash because it has a lower transaction fee? And they said, no, we're not set up for that. And he asked, when was the last time somebody did a Bitcoin transaction? When was the last time somebody tried to pay in Bitcoin? And the guy was like, I don't remember. It's not for exchange. It's not designed to be able to foster exchange. Even though that was the intent, the architecture didn't support that. We believe that our architecture will support a medium of exchange.
And just to add, Matthew, like when we presented to the regulator in Liechtenstein and suddenly talking to various parties, partners, providers who've been looking at our project, this is one of the big areas of innovation where they say, exactly like you just described, hey, we've seen 500 projects in the last 12 months and no one has described it in this way. So it's something that we think we highlight in our green paper. It's one of the big points of difference in the project, and it's one reason where we're really, really excited to be bringing this to the world.
Yay. All right. Are there any other things that we want to? I'm just going to make visible some of the comments that got made here, and then maybe we can do some wrap up. I won't read them all. I'll just sort of summarize. There were a number of folks that said, "I'm not literate in cryptocurrency. thank you for walking through this. We are attracted to the goals, the motivation behind the project, etc. So thank you for walking through this. And they said, going further, a point-by-point manual for dummies on cryptocurrency might be nice. So I don't know that we'll be delivering a point-by-point manual. In part, we will definitely do as much as we can on our own stuff, explaining how the rest of the crypto world works. There's a whole lot out there. We usually are mostly focusing on the majors, the Bitcoin and Ethereum, et cetera, whose currencies are fairly similar in terms of how they operate. But,
Matthew, I know we are running, but I was actually talking to a good friend of mine today who comes from the art space, and Holochain just makes so much sense from their perspective because of the idea of content ownership and value of content creation. And he's just like, every time it takes about half an hour. I mean, this to explain, but every time you see someone's jaw drop when you explain what is happening, but then also most importantly, what Holo and Holochain could do. So we were talking today about Holo for Dummies. So maybe through the eyes of a comedian, Harry, maybe you can work on it with us.
That would be great. Yeah, Harry's
a visual facilitator. He might have some gift in helping us get that clear.
That would be awesome.
And we would love that. Yes, that would be awesome. Harry, if you go to our Mattermost, chat.holochain.net, ping me. I'm at Matthew Joseph with an F at the end, not a PH. And I would love to collaborate with you on creating some materials that are accessible to others. The last one we'll touch on, because I just saw it get highlighted, was for an investor, can we expect an increase in the value of Holo tokens like other coins for holding for a long term? We don't get to make predictions like that. I think if I did, it would be illegal. Our hope and our ambition and what we've designed for is, yes, we anticipate and we're intending that the value will rise. We think we're underpricing this, but we don't expect it to look like this. We don't expect it to be some exponential curve that just goes up, 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 and then really crashes. We expect it to be something that goes up and then finds its natural level. So we are issuing currency at a rate pegged to Ethereum, but we think we're actually being somewhat conservative in our pricing there. Yeah, Jean.
Yeah, I want to say something important here, because every once in a while people read deeply enough into the currency paper to get to the what's our long-term vision on this stuff. And so I'd like to say, I can't say what it actually will happen, but as you said, the aspiration is we prove that we're much more efficient than Ethereum, and that the gap between what we are lowball bet and the actual delivery is part of where our early contributors will be able to gain value from that bet on whether we're going to deliver at a much higher value. But then let's say 7 to 10 years down the road, people aren't using the web anymore and they're fully on Holochain. And so it's not that we think this thing is going to exist forever, but the window for that is this transitionary phase. And so I would not recommend and now this is an actual recommendation, I would not recommend anybody say, I'm going to go put my money in HoloFuel and leave it there for 20 years. Right? This is something that's going to be part of this transitionary phase for us. We have a long-term vision on what we want to build, and this is an important piece of that puzzle that's appropriate for the present and the next several years.
Yeah, I think that's a wonderful. I don't plan to take my HoloFuel. I do, but I plan to put it in a time capsule and then bequeath that to my grandchildren. All right. Any last minute? What are the things that we should make visible as we're wrapping up? Announcements that we may have made at the beginning, etc. Meetups. There's meetups in Atlanta. There's meetups in San Francisco. There's going to be a hackathon happening in Brazil, in Sao Paulo. There's a hackathon happening right now still. It's been going on for much of a week in London. There's one happening next month in Copenhagen. There's a whole bunch of events occurring. Feel free to go onto our online community at chat.holochain.net and ask questions. And if you have answers, answer questions. It's not just our job to answer questions. If you're like, oh, no, I know the answer to this, please jump in. We're looking for lively conversations, and we're looking for people to, the whole point of this is to build community, right? And we build community through communication. One thing that we haven't talked about yet is the HoloChats. Jean, can you give us a little bit of HoloChats, Steph?
Yeah, the last HoloChat series we did was on responsibility, and I have an interview coming out, like I've already recorded it, with Kevin Doyle-Jones from SoCap Good Capital, talking about responsibility, and I'm about to launch the next series this coming week. We're going to be talking about applications. Super interested in hearing what people want in terms of applications and what are questions to consider in that space.
Great. All right, all. Until next time, thank you so much. And we'll probably be seeing you in about a week or so. Take care. Thanks, David. Thanks, Jean.
Bye. Thanks all.
Thanks, guys.